Hi, yesterday we started our new series called For the City, and we talked about what it looked like for us to thrive in exile. We're going to be talking about that all week long. And our text yesterday was Jeremiah 29 verses 1 to 23. And today I just want to briefly talk with you about understanding exile, what exile is. I want to read Jeremiah 29 verses 4 to 7. This is what the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, says to all the captives he's exiled to Babylon from Jerusalem. Build homes and plan to stay, plant gardens and eat the food they produce. Marry and have children. Then find spouses for them so that you have grandchildren, many grandchildren. Multiply, do not dwindle away. And work for the peace and prosperity of the city where I sent you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, for its welfare will determine your welfare. Thinking about just the way how, we have situations happen in our lives, we have things happen in our lives, and often it can feel like we're in exile. And the question is, like, how do we respond in the midst of that? And what God is telling his people is he's giving them very specific and direct instructions about how they are going to thrive and grow. I think about the garden. I know I've talked a lot about gardens this year, so it's just what I know. I think about the garden that we have behind the fence in our home. It's right on the alley. The ground is really poor, really terrible, and what we've had to do is spend a lot of time working on that ground and putting down the grass clippings, and we have all sorts of things that we're doing to work on the ground to keep it wet and to till it and to make sure it has oxygen and put compost on it and all of those kinds of things. And what we've found is, as we've done that, as we've provided the right care over the years, our garden is starting to bear fruit. So even though it's a small place, even though the ground isn't the best, because we've cared for it, because we've taken care of it, because we've made sure that it has what it needs to thrive despite the conditions that it's in, we're finding that it's thriving, that we get vegetables from it. We're still getting tomatoes. We probably got another couple weeks left on that. But because we're putting effort into taking care of what we have, it's just the ground that was there. And yes, we've had to do some things to it. We've had to go out and water it because it doesn't receive water. We've had to carry the hose and put it over the top of the fence and spend time out there and give it time, effort, and energy. And we've talked about that so many times over the past 7.5 years. We've talked about it so many times over the last month and a half that despite what the ground looks like, we've had to do things. We've had to make that mental shift. We talked about that yesterday. We had to make the choice to care for it. And because of that, because of the time, effort, and energy that we put into it, it's thriving. And that's what I want to encourage you in today, is to consider what it looks like for you to have the right mindset to thrive in the midst of the adversity that you're currently facing. When we focus on what God wants us to do, when we focus on the things that God is calling us to do and that God is calling us to be the kind of people that he wants us to be, we'll find that we will thrive. And thriving may not be overwhelming success. It may not mean maybe, having $1 million in the bank financially, but thriving does look like being the kind of people that God wants us to be. So I want you to think about that today. To think about and identify one area in your life where you feel like you're in exile. How can you pray for God's guidance and seek ways to thrive in the midst of that situation? That's what I'm praying with and for you today. Love you, and we will see you again tomorrow.